Hello, my name is Ben.
And my name is Erik.
Welcome to the Two Egg Podcast. One word, two hosts, stories, trivia, and video games. This week, Erik is back in the virtual studio with me. How are you doing, Erik?
A little sleepy. You know, you have a 2-year-old and that happens sometimes.
Oh, let me just be sure to say this. Erik with a K, not Erik with a C. Erik from Imaginary Game Studios.
The superior spelling.
The superior spelling is Erik with a K?
Like, it's objectively true.
Do you know any Eriks with Q's at the end?
I don't, but I did know of an Erik that was ERRYCK.
Seems like the parents were trying a little too hard on that one.
I would agree with you.
One of the previous episodes we were talking about, I had to ask this guy, Doug, how to spell his name because of one incident. Both myself and Andrew knew this guy when we worked at the coffee shop who spelled his name D-U-G, like the verb.
There's no way that is on his birth certificate. I think you guys need not worry about that happening again.
And then that reminded me of my brother. His friend, his name is Chase, and his brothers are Ty and Drew, and they have a dog named Tug. So they're all verbs.
That's very interesting.
That's just the weird stuff that I notice.
Yeah, you're Ben. What is that, like a past participle or something?
Yeah, that's true. I got that in high school for a little while.
God, kids are so unimaginative. How do you even weaponize that?
Well, it was like, hey, Ben, how have you been? That's what it was.
That's so stupid. And I'm sure that I would have been one of those kids too.
And I said, hey, Mark, nice remark. And just rolled my eyes.
Yeah,
but
that's actually pretty clever.
I don't know. Let's not talk about my high school days. Not in the context of people who were trying to bully. Actually, they weren't trying to bully. They were just trying to be goofy. And I was one of those kids in high school that I knew everyone. There was one incident where someone tried to start something with me, and that was thwarted pretty quickly. So I got out of high school relatively unfazed.
Did you get like a lot of party invites and stuff like that? Were you just like that socially dexterous type of person?
Oh, God, no. I was exactly the opposite of that. Back in my high school days, man, I was pretty much play my computer, go to the arcade, go on bicycle rides, go to the mall sometimes, either with myself or with a buddy, one person or maybe two people tops. I was pretty much to myself most of the time.
So what behavior ingratiated you to such a multitude of people?
I really don't know. I wasn't open to exploring that because I was too preoccupied with all sorts of other stuff that I later realized didn't matter. Had I been aware of that fact, maybe I could have used it to my advantage, or maybe it was a little bit of my innocence. I had some of my father's wit. Maybe it was that, but it never really, I just tried to get through school.
My suite of things that didn't matter included Counter-Strike, Diablo 2. Me and my group of friends, that is what we lived for, man. Did you ever play StarCraft back in the day?
No, I didn't play, but I'm well aware of StarCraft. A lot of people really love that game.
You could do these custom maps. Like, it is pretty standard in an RTS. My favorite custom map on StarCraft was Lurker Defense in Space.
Okay.
It was incredible. You had these units that would burrow underground, and they would shoot these subterranean spikes. And at the beginning of this level, they gave you like 20 of them or 25 or something like that. And you had to situate them on this path so that they would kill the maximum amount of people. It's like a tower defense game, but instead of towers, you have these bugs. And man, we were so cool in school. We were the kids at lunch, like drawing up schematics for Lurker Defense in Space. Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. That's what we live for, man.
Is that in between football? You were a football guy, right?
I was, yeah. That was a little before football. But yeah, I started playing football because we moved and I didn't know anybody.
Oh, okay. So it was a social thing.
And I was like, hey, I should probably. Yeah, and that was looking back. I don't know, man. I didn't like a whole lot of those guys.
I get it. Maybe my thing was I was unassuming and didn't challenge people. I was just like, let's all get along, man. Let's just do that.
I was the opposite. I was such like a piece of crap in high school. I don't think I was ever cruel to anybody, but I was very uncomfortable with someone like socially reaching out. Let me clarify that a little bit. I was very uncomfortable if someone was like tried to include me in on like a joke or something like that. I had no idea how to respond.
Okay.
Looking back, I'm like, why was that so difficult? But yeah, that was Those were tough days, man. Not a lot of people in high school playing Lurker D in space, you know.
No, you know what I remember from high school? Calculus. Which kind of, which, I'm sorry, that was my attempt to connect it to the word this week, which is derivative.
Skillfully done. I can see why you were so popular in high school.
Oh my gosh, I just have so many high school stories. Here's another one. I was in a class called Heroes, and we had to exchange books and read them. One of the books, some sort of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever book I was reading at the time, I gave to the girl to read, and she gave me Robin Cook's Brain. I think
that's not a fair trade.
Not really, but as far as what she reads and what I read, it's completely different, right? So it kind of fit the exercise. It's like expose this other person to something different. Well, we had to give a speech about it. I don't know if you know the book, but there was a gynecologist who was basically poisoning women so they could harvest their brains for some sort of computer thing that they were doing.
Uh-huh.
So that was the whole thing. I was trying to explain to people, I was like, yeah, so when the doctor was doing the pap smear, and then one pap smear. But anyway, it was pap smear. That's ugh. Keep that bagel away from me, Jesus.
There's a couple paths we could go down.
Let's not. But Einstein Brothers introduces the pap smear. But anyway, not to get super gross. It was like I didn't want to talk about it, right? Because I'm, a high school kid, that kind of stuff embarrassed me and whatnot. And then someone, the same guy who did the whole Ben, how have you been? It was him again, raise his hand and go, hey, what's a pap smear? I was like,
that's when you.
And then the teacher.
Look at the teacher.
Yeah, the teacher let me off the hook. If you want to know, you can do the research. Ben, don't worry about it. Just keep on going.
And that was pre-Wikipedia, man. I mean, he would have actually had to go
to the library. Yeah, that was the library days.
The word is derivative, and
correct.
I know that there's no such thing as an original high school student. So who were you trying to emulate in high school?
Boy, who was I trying to, or who did people think I was emulating? Because
I mean, either or.
I got a lot of people comparing me to Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That was the guy. I had the bowl cut. I was kind of the unassuming, sort of sick all the time, but not really sick all the time kind of kid. I would just stay at home so I could do whatever I wanted, play with my Commodore 64 or whatever. I don't think I was emulating him, though, and we didn't have any money. It wasn't like we were rich or anything.
Sure.
So people would always say, you know what you remind me of? Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I was like, great.
You didn't have a certain style that you tried to project out?
No, not really. I don't think so. I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, any of that kind of stuff. I worked at TCBY, the country's best yogurt. That's where I met all the cool kids from high school. And we listened to Depeche Mode and Erasure and all those moody bands.
Absolutely.
And Echo and the Bunny Men. I don't really think I was trying to emulate anything other than I was just doing what I like to do to have fun and go see Dad on the weekends. And then he would expose us to whatever culture and things. But I don't know that I was trying to emulate anyone at that point. I don't think I was that emotionally intelligent or not emotionally intelligent, because maybe the more intelligent thing is just to be yourself and just figure out what you want to do and not try and emulate someone. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the more intelligent thing, but I don't know.
You sounded pretty put together from that description.
How about you? Did you try and emulate?
I had probably had a Keanu Reeves Matrix phase for a little while.
Okay. Trench coats?
No trench coats, because that was around the time that Columbine happened. So those were out of the picture.
Right.
But I kind of like you. I didn't really aspire to project anything other than just general unfriendliness.
Okay.
And again, that was just, I think, more of a defense mechanism.
I had spells of that too, where it was just kind of like I could just keep to myself. If you responded to me, I would get into a conversation with you, but I didn't make any attempt to reach out.
Yeah, and I had my circle of friends that I was chummy with, but
yeah.
But it was, I was part of a weird array of stuff. Like I was on a national championship football team. I was on it. I wasn't any good. But I was an honor student. I played video games. I read a lot. And I just kind of had my hand in all these different worlds. I remember during football practice one day, I was talking to one of the other players. I was so excited because I saved up money over the summer to build my first home-built PC.
Okay.
And I remember one of the other players looked at me and he goes, "You built a PC?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "For what?" I said, "For video games." He goes, "You're an effing loser, dude." And I think about that, how the culture has shifted so much.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it?
If you talked about comic books or video games or anything like that, you got lambasted. But nowadays, it's almost like you're expected to be part of the.
It's true. I mean, even back in my high school days, I graduated 89. When did you graduate?
2006.
So there are about 15 years separating us. Even back in my day, it was still very similar. The comic books, Dungeons and Dragons, computer, the arcades. It was a similar kind of thing where it's like there's a certain type of people who do that kind of thing, the subculture unto itself. But we also did stuff like go to malls. We were kind of those mall rat people, usually one that had a good arcade. We would walk around shopping for a little bit, and then we'd go to the arcade and spend the rest of our time there, maybe go to a movie or whatever.
I caught that generation a little bit. I remember going to skating rinks and stuff like that to play the arcade.
Yeah, skating rinks. That was also, yeah.
I didn't like skating, but like, let me at the video games. Give me as many quarters as I can fit in my pockets. My last mall memory, like I've been in malls many times since this, but the last time like I was like, I gotta go to the mall to do something like important. It was standing in line at midnight for the Grand Theft Auto 4 release.
Oh, wow. Talk about derivative.
The mall was open specially for this. Can you imagine doing that today?
No.
Like, oh, Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out. Let me go drive to the mall and wait in line for 2 hours.
Now you just have to pre-order.
And have it waiting on your system.
Exactly. I guess the GameStop sort of thing, and those types of places and those types of events. I guess they're trying to bring those types of experiences back, similar to how Starbucks is trying to make their place, I don't know what they're calling it these days, the third place, or it used to be called something else.
Like home and work and Starbucks.
Right. Which is actually very accurate for me because that's where I do all my editing, is at the Starbucks.
You're a trendsetter. You're ahead of the game.
Stock owner, too.
You must be worth a fortune.
Not really. 10 stocks does not denote fortune. And it's kind of interesting that we got into sort of the high school thing because I do have a connection with the word derivative from my high school days and actually from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What have you been up to lately on the game front or in your personal life or whatever you want to share? What's new with Erik?
Game development wise, you're talking with Christian later, aren't you?
Yeah, we're supposed to do it next week.
He'll be able to give you a lot more info, but Imaginary Games, we have another employee finally.
Oh, wow.
And she's doing some graphic stuff for us, and she's great.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was exciting. But right now, the big thing is super sexy, of course, is trying to figure out how long the gameplay trailer should be.
Okay.
So much of indie game design and development is you have to wear all these really stupid hats. When we were at EA, like we had a marketing department.
Yeah.
And they had all this data and research and like, okay, like the trailer should be this long and it should feature this many colors in the first 12 seconds and da 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 da. When you're just doing it on your own, you're kind of like, yeah, this feels right. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So me and Christian are looking at different cuts of the trailer, and he has one I think it's around 2 minutes, and I think it's fantastic. It talks about the game mechanics of Rogue Climber and it like how nuanced and complex they are. Like the game has a ground pound in it, like in the Super Mario 64, but it's not just a ground pound. Like it's actually a means of travel. You can get places very quickly. You can kill enemies with it. It collects things inside of the shockwave that you create. It's a movement tool. And we have one cut of the trailer that talks about stuff like the ground pound in those terms. But it's such a long trailer. So Christian and I were discussing, like, is it worth cutting it down a little bit maybe? So he recut it to a 61-second trailer.
Okay.
And this is such inside baseball, not interesting game development stuff, but it's so important. He made this 60-second version, and I said, it just seems like a game where you're jumping on platforms now. You've stripped away all the complexity from it. Like the controls are so deep. I mean, Christian built them from scratch. And without a little bit of exposition, I mean, that stuff's just going to get lost. So right now we're trying to figure out, do we risk it with a longer trailer that maybe won't get as much traction, or do we go with a shorter trailer that has brighter colors but no real information in it?
Yeah, a successful trailer, you've got to have substance to begin with of the game itself. That's your first thing, because you can make a game look like it has substance, similar to movie trailers, I would guess, where it doesn't have substance. You can pique someone's interest in a way. And I think the people who are going to want to play Rogue Climber are people who would be more in tune with the whole, this is a unique way that this thing is built. Like the behind the scenes stuff, but a fun experience. Here is what makes this game special, just by the little that you said. My instinct says the 2-minute.
I also voted for the 2-minute one, and I think we are going to go with that one, but we'll have to. Ultimately, it's Christian's decision. I mean, he's doing all the work on it. So
if you've got a trailer that just focuses on the ground pound and how that's unique, maybe do one for other moves, kind of like in a series.
Yeah, like they used to do, like League of Legends hero spotlights.
Exactly, but you could do it with game mechanic spotlights.
You looking for a marketing job?
I no.
And we can't afford you anyway, so that's fine.
Oh, geez. Thank you. I've got a lot of experience supporting software, but no marketing experience. I'm an idea guy. I belong in the think tank. That's where they keep me.
So that's the gaming front.
That's cool.
Not a lot of exciting stuff. Christian has been working his ass off, debugging and playtesting, and this is the phase of the game development where I'm pretty much useless, because I also am an ideas guy and a story guy. If you're playtesting, you probably don't need any new ideas. You probably don't need any new story beats. I can't program anything, so Christian's been doing all that work. Otherwise, on the non-gaming front, I did finish up Severance 3 weeks ago. Have you seen Severance?
I saw the first season of Severance.
Well, you sound unimpressed.
I was. I understand the idea and I get it, but for some reason it just didn't quite connect, and I'm not sure why. Do you think the second season will connect? Because it did have some interesting stuff in it, and Christopher Walken. So
Christopher Walken is in season 2. It's hard to say. Season 2, it continues with more of the wacky world building. You barely see them doing any work in season 2, if my memory serves right. It's more of like the shenanigans that are going on all around. They continue to dive into all that. I actually like season 1 better.
Okay.
But I thought season 1, let's say a 9 out of 10. Season 2 is, for me, it's like an 8.5. Like, it's not far behind.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this kind of stuff lately. The things that I enjoy. When it comes to story, I like happy endings for one. And I mean that as in the G-rated version, the happy ending as far as everything works out, all the loose ends are tied up. It's a fairy tale ending.
Nobody cut Ben out of context in that statement.
I really like happy endings.
But okay, so go on. Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing is I have to connect with the character somehow. If there is a character that I can't connect with on some level, it takes away from whatever the thing is. And the premise itself, spoiler alert, I don't know why anyone would want to forget everything in their life or even submit to that, painful or otherwise, and makes us who we are. So any character that would do that, it's more like I'm looking at them and seeing how they behave in the situation. It's like rats in a maze kind of thing. And people like that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, there are different interesting things that could happen based on this premise, but I just don't connect with any of the characters. And that probably is a big issue.
I recommended the show to a friend of mine a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she watched it with her boyfriend, and she texted me, and she's like, okay, so listen, I'm on board, but my boyfriend hated this thing. He thought the characters were all deplorable and unforgivable people, and the sets were unimaginative, and I was like, wow, all right. He didn't use the word derivative, though.
Well, having predictable characters, there's got to be a reason for me to connect. Like with The Big Lebowski, the dude is not someone that I would really... The thing that I connect with is just living the life and just kind of observing and getting pulled into the situation that you've got to find some way out of, right? That's the connection there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nothing like the dude. I don't drink White Russians. I don't have to be like that person. I just need to find some sort of hook to go, okay, I can identify with that situation, or I can identify with this characteristic. And it's a lot more difficult when you've got characters that are deplorable, or you don't quite agree or don't understand why they're doing something. Or at least for me it is. So the connection piece is probably the big reason why I didn't quite get that. And then also when we're talking about derivatives in video games, and I was thinking about this because of the Star Wars Outlaws game that I'm playing. I'm describing it as sucky Assassin's Creed. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but yeah, the character in that too. It's like they're a scoundrel. Okay, it's kind of cool to explore being a scoundrel and allying with all sorts of evil organizations and stuff, but the character is kind of like a whiny little kid who wants to escape their life. You know what I mean? Oh, my mom did this and I just want to make money and get off this planet, and, you know, I don't know.
It's the Holden Caulfield syndrome, Catcher in the Rye. Everyone complains about the protagonist. Did you ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No, I did not.
It's actually worth your time.
You mean not the movie, the cartoon, yeah?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen the movie, so it has cartoon humor and the dialogue isn't real complex or anything like that. But I hate these people that are like, dude, it's so deep, and it's not really, but it's fantastic, and the themes are very well executed. And the head writer on that, he's a guy named Aaron Ehas. He has a couple behind the scenes Instagram posts about working on it, and one of them, I'm going to try to do it by memory, but he said, everyone tells you your characters have to be likable and relatable and sympathetic and all that. And he's like, they do not. These are not bad things for your characters to be. But your character instead needs to be dimensional and fascinating and compelling. And I can't remember what else was in that list. But he said if you have a relatable character and all he does is, go to the grocery store and get up for work, and it's super relatable, but who cares?
Well, that's kind of where the dude is. He's kind of relatable. He just does his thing and goes bowling, right? He
also gets caught up in
a really weird situation, and that's part of the situational nature of that movie that I enjoy, right? I don't know.
Yes.
I understand that a character without flaws is a boring character, but making them 100% flawed just to get this idea that, oh, they're complex because they're all moody and emo and whatever. It's like, well, some people are just moody.
You were talking about the Big Lebowski, and I love the Big Lebowski. I love the Coen brothers just in general.
Cool.
I hated No Country for Old Men because the characters, I just didn't give a crap about any of them. I thought Anton Chigurh was fascinating and very interesting, but I'm like, okay, so what? Fine. And then the protagonist, I can't even remember the dude's name, he dies off screen. Oh, spoilers for a 20-year-old movie.
We should just call this the Too Vague and Spoilers podcast, because I do that all the time.
You're sitting there following this guy's journey with, he gets his hands on this illicit money, and you're like, oh man, what's going to become of this? And you never, he gets murdered in a scene that's not shown in the movie. Then the movie ends 11 minutes later, and you're sitting there going like, and everyone was like, oh, it's a masterpiece. And I'm like, I just don't get it.
With movies and stories that I enjoy, I try to say, I think you should watch this movie. This is what I enjoy about the movie. And that's it. Because masterpiece or not, whether I think it's a masterpiece, no one cares. It's not my place to judge. It's like, I think that you will connect with this, and this in this movie, and I think that you'll enjoy that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or here is what I enjoy about this movie. But masterpiece, saying that something is the pinnacle is just, it's a lot easier to say, oh, I don't need to watch any other movies anymore because this one's a masterpiece.
I still haven't watched Hamilton. Musicals are not my jam, man.
Not even Starlight Express?
I don't even, what is that?
It's an Andrew Lloyd Webber one with the people who are trains on roller skates. It's a less popular one of the cats, it's animals or trains. But yeah, they got a big installation for Starlight Express in Germany where they have regular shows there. It's still really popular in Germany.
Interesting.
The idea that you had about doing a watch along, I don't know how serious you were about it, doing one of those watch along channel things, that was cool. I don't know if I have the time to do that or if you have the time to do it. That would be a neat thing to do, is investigate a lot of these movies that no one investigates on these watch-along channels. Stuff like Outland and Vibes and Brainstorm and Rock and Rule, and movies that you and I find joy in, and sharing them with the other person kind of thing. I just don't know how much time I have to do it.
We'd have to figure out a way to optimize it, because I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I get about 40 minutes a day where I'm not accountable to anyone.
And that's very difficult to watch a 1.5 hour up to 2 hour movie when you have 40 minutes a day.
I have made it work, but yes, you're right. But I would love to do that.
I should just send you all my DVDs.
Do I even have anything to play DVDs on anymore?
Do you have a CD-ROM on your computer? Probably not. Not anymore.
No, not anymore. My PlayStation is all digital.
My PlayStation 5 is all digital, and that's why I watch my movies Blu-ray or DVD on my machine that sounds like a jet engine, the PlayStation 4.
Ah, yes.
The one that contains no baffling, no sort of sound deadening device or... Anyway, the thing that I've been up to is playing 2 games. I got codes for those, and these are going to be like mini reviews. You can ask me questions on them. The first one is Spacepunk Survival. It's a multiplayer first-person shooter. It's one of those horde games where you've got different waves coming at you. The thing that I think of is Robotron or Smash TV or, like those types of arcade experiences.
Yeah.
It's got decent music, but it's not a game that I would play with anyone. It's a game to play with people, and I'm just myself. Even trying to play it online is kind of like, the gun is wobbly as far as the first gun that you get. The aliens that are coming at you are pixelated by design. It's supposed to be, you know what, let me read the description the PlayStation 5 says. A multiplayer first-person shooter with beautiful and dark retro aesthetics.
The inflection in your voice makes me think you don't buy into that.
Sorry. A multiplayer first-person shooter with beautiful and dark retro aesthetics.
There we go.
Is that better?
That was better.
Okay. It's an indie action game by Tavern Tale Studios and published by Nedgecraft. Does it tick the retro box? Absolutely. But if it's a choice between playing that and trying to find a version of Castle Wolfenstein or Doom or something to play on a DOS machine back when I was younger, I would go with the other. You explore things, explore a maze, and you do some exploration here as a team with your team members, but it just seems like you've got to shoot so many aliens in the head. I don't know. It just is not fun. I don't know how else to say it. Not fun. And maybe it would be a little more fun with people, but I don't see it.
I can interject on that point. That's such an interesting insight. And it's so fundamental. Like, this thing you're making has to be fun. People have to like playing it. And when I worked in the AAA industry, there was this guy I worked with. His name was George. He was a game designer with me and Christian over at EA, but he was a games journalist for a long time and a consultant for a long time. And he knew everybody. Like, if I brought up anybody, he had like stories about Ken Levine from Irrational and about anyone that you could think of. There was one day I was complaining about something, and I was ranting, and I was like, we don't have a genius on this staff right now, so we're going to have to do it the hard way. We don't have Sid Meier in the room with us making decisions. And George goes, "Oh, I know Sid." And I said, "Oh, that's amazing." He goes, "Yeah, he'd be really upset if he heard you refer to him as a genius." And I said, "What? How else would you describe him? Like, everything the guy touches is gold. Say what you want about the fluctuating quality of Civ, but it's still civilization, right?" He goes, "Man, Sid would tell you there's no genius or masterwork at play here. You make something small and you fiddle with it until it's so fun that you can't put it down.
Yeah.
And then you slowly expand it into something else. But you have got to start with that initial core that is just obsessively fun."
Something like a simulator, that's especially true. I would also make a point for story. You can build a good game around a story. It takes a special kind of group or a special kind of person to do it, but you can have a compelling story to tell and build a game around that. But it's tricky.
I think The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games ever, maybe my favorite game ever. I don't think it's an outstanding game. It's a interactive experience that delivers this really amazing story.
Yeah. When we get into the video games, we can talk a little bit more about Cyberpunk and how that didn't meet your expectations. But
Right.
I don't like pooping on people's art. You know, those quote unquote games that are visual novels that are kind of like choose your own adventure book. Those rely upon a good story to keep you going, right? Because at the heart of them, the game mechanics are ultra simple or non-existent. It's more about keeping you going on the story, but there's so many bad visual novels. To me, this is equivalent to that. There is no story. It relies upon the game mechanics entirely. Also, I don't really agree with Spacepunk. Because you're just a dude shooting aliens. What's punk rock about that? Nothing.
I didn't even think about that. That's true.
It's not really punk, you know, space punk. It's space. They should just call it space. Space survival. If we put punk in there and get a great trailer, maybe, now I'm being cynical.
You sound like me and Christian right now.
Well, you've got something backing it up based on what I played. You got something that has some substance to it. This doesn't feel like it does.
I appreciate you saying that. You know, you're always nervous when you're going to a place like PAX or wherever, and you're like, gosh, is it really fun, or have we just like Stockholm syndromed ourselves? I'm having some of the people there, like we had this one kid, we had to like ask him to leave. You've been here like 3 hours. Does your mom know where you are? So that was exciting.
And then the second one I wanted to just briefly mention was this other game called Polterguys. Clever wordplay, I guess. Polterguys Possession Party. That's alliteration for you.
Oh, yeah.
I would call it a variant of Mario Kart, but the object is to not get caught by a big ghost that's chasing after you. So you get up to 8 people together online, or the PlayStation 5 version of this game. You can play local co-op with it, which is kind of cool. It seems like it would be more fun with more people in a larger room. Poltergeist Possession Party is developed by Mediocre and published by Amplified Games. And it's got cute little ghosts. You possess different objects, and the different objects have different powers. And then you also get random items that you can use to speed up yourself or slow down people who are chasing after you. The banana peel in the road kind of stuff.
Is there a finish line, or is it like last man standing?
It's last man standing. Yeah, there is no finish line. So
it almost reminds me of like an inverse Fall Guys.
Have you been back to Fall Guys at all? I mean, did they close it down? I don't know.
I actually don't know either. I played it like everybody. I played it pretty intensively for like 2 months. Gosh, when's the last time I played that? It's probably been since the pandemic, I'd say.
It was one of those pandemic games that got popularized back then.
Man.
It was a neat idea, very, very well executed, I thought. Needed a little bit more diversity, but it was fun. I had fun with it. So
I'm sure they turned a profit.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Poltergeist Possession Party. My plosives are going nuts on this.
I hope you have a filter on your mic.
I do have a filter, but I have a very powerful mouth.
That's another thing. Don't
say the powerful mouth. People get the happy ending, say I have a very powerful mouth. So that's Poltergeist Possession Party. It's cutesy, and it's got little things where when you in your lobby, you've got a little bit of exploration you can do to find the new characters to unlock, basically, within the environment. So,
like Spelunky.
What is the Spelunky mechanic you're referring to?
There's like, what are they? Coffins that you come across while you're in levels, and you open up the coffins to unlock playable characters.
This happens not during the gameplay specifically. This happens like when you're in the lobby. So if you look around the lobby and you can find different objects to possess, you can also possess those objects or things like that in the game. As a ghost, you have limited powers, but then when you possess something, that's when you get your different moves, depending on what you start out with. And then also, you've got your different banana peel, the whole Mario Kart kind of assortment of objects, right?
You're saying that the game is derivative of Mario Kart?
I am kind of saying that, but not in a bad way. This seems like a good option if you want something that's just a little different. You know what I mean? It's kind of a Smash Bros meets Mario Kart kind of game. So
Yeah.
once again, it's not my kind of game, but I can see where the appeal is. And if you were looking for a party game that's kind of like that, this definitely would fit the bill and be fun to play with many other people.
Yeah, I wish I had friends.
You and me both, man. Now I just have my cat. So that is what I've been up to. Let's get into the word. You mentioned derivative. I'm going to close the math page because I don't want to talk about math. I know that Christian will be very, very disappointed that we're not going to cover the math. Anywho.
I would rather die than have that conversation.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, that wouldn't make for interesting radio. It'd just be me talking at that point.
Hopefully you calling emergency services or something.
I probably wouldn't notice. I would just be good talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. I would feel horrible after the fact, but
that means a lot, and I appreciate that.
The word derivative, we got adjective and noun. The adjective typically of an artist or work of art, imitative of the work of another person and usually disapproved of for that reason, originating from, based on, or influenced by, of a financial product having a value deriving from an underlying variable asset. Those are our adjectives, and our nouns, something that is based on another source, an arrangement or instrument such as a future option or warrant whose value derives from and is dependent on the value of an underlying asset. Once again, a nounification of the adjectives, I guess. Oh, this is interesting. A word derived from another or from a root in the same or another language. So yeah, that's basically the show right there. We can close the book on the show. We've covered derivative.
Is derivative?
A tree fall in the woods, does it make a sound? I really don't know. It actually, derivative is derivative. That is correct. We'll get into that in just a second here, though. The next noun, a substance that is derived chemically from a specified compound, and in mathematics, math. Should I say it or should I appease the Christian?
No, you should.
Okay, I won't. So we're skipping the math.
Nothing would be more offensive to me.
Nora's going to be disappointed, but you know what? She can look it up. She already knows probably. So the origin, late Middle English in the adjective sense, having the power to draw off, and in the noun sense, a word derived from another. From French, I cannot pronounce French, but it is derivatif, suffix ive. From Latin, derivatus. From derivare, see derive. So that is the origin, the derivative of derivatives.
Was it? I wonder if it was like deployed in an insulting manner when it was used in Latin.
How so?
Like if you wrote a play or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, this is derivative." Like, would you take that personally?
I don't think back then you would. Knowing human beings as I know them now today, not back in history, I think they weaponized it. There are things that you get inspiration from, right? It is obviously this thing is derived from that thing, but it doesn't make it any less impactful or any less good. It's just that we put that spin on it. It's the difference between saying if you approve of something, you say it's inspired by, but if you don't approve of something, you say it's derivative of. But they're essentially the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's my hot take, but what do you think?
I think you're spot on. There's a GDC talk by a guy named Ralph Koster.
Okay.
He's a very popular video game designer. And his talk, he's given a couple of them. This one specifically is called Practical Creativity, if I'm remembering it correctly. And the first half of it is he makes this really compelling case that it's really hard in video games to make a game. You can make a variant of a game, but it's very hard to make a game. So he says, take fighting games, for example. The first ever fighting game was rock, paper, scissors. And if you look at some of the older arcade fighters, it's simply a variation of that. Maybe instead of rock, paper, and scissors, and the 3 options, you have maybe 5 options, but you're still trying to overcome the opponent's inputs with inputs, designed to overpower them.
Right.
He says that there have been new fighting games here and there, like one added dimensionality.
Mm-hmm.
So, you could move around left and right, forward and backward.
Making it 2-player instead of 1-player.
Yeah, stuff like that, where it becomes a different game at that point. You interact with it in a different way. But he said you would be shocked. Like, if you use those terms, you will not see a new game on the shelves in any year. Everything is a variant of something that came before it. And again, not a bad thing.
It's the interpretation, right? I think critics are the ones who made derivative a bad word. What do you think about that?
I think you are a critic, aren't you?
No, I think we're all a critic when it comes to stuff that we like, what we like and what we don't. But I'm talking about people who do that for a living, like movie critics.
That's a really good question. I'm thinking now, like, to understand that something is derivative, you have to have some awareness of the landscape of that type of art. And it becomes a matter of perspective, I think. If I watch a really amazing movie and someone goes, "Oh, that's just a knockoff of Brainstorm."
Right.
And I go, "Well, I've not seen Brainstorm, so it had the intended effect on me." I don't know, to answer your question. I'm not sure. That's a really deep kind of insight there.
Maybe we'll need another show for that. But as I was doing research for the show, I came across this website, this blog that this guy has. I don't know who the guy is, but it's called the Cynical Gaming Blog. Gaming died in the 2010s, but the 90s and the 2000s will never die. That's the subtitle of his Cynical Gaming Blog.
That he definitely, I can see why he has the name.
Yes, but there was an article that I read that kind of piqued my interest. Theory crafting. Derivative game design, how to utilize ideas from older games properly. And it's just an interesting sort of observations of how do you take one thing and tweak it and make it better. Did you ever play the game Painkiller?
No.
Okay. Painkiller was a game from People Can Fly from Warsaw, Poland. And Painkiller was, at its core, Doom.
Oh, God, everything is derivative of Doom.
To some extent, any first person. We could probably argue the history of where that perspective came from. But you play as a character who you're going through hell. And you're trying to eliminate things and find where the weapons are and get to the portal or whatever. But it is such a fun game. And one of the coolest things in the game is the stake gun, which has this ridiculous physics thing where you've got these wooden stakes that you shoot out of the gun and it just picks up the people and takes them and they get lodged into whatever it hits. It's a fun game. It's a great, fun game.
Like, I already want to play that just for the stake gun.
Yeah, but you can look at it from a different perspective and say, this is just Doom with different weapons. I think that's a little bit on a cynical side, but I can't deny the fact that I had so much fun with it. And I was exposed to a company that made a lot of the games that I like. Bulletstorm was one of them, which kind of had a creative mechanic where you had this whip where you could grab people, but then you would also get bonuses based on creative ways you would use the things in the environment to kill other things.
It's kind of like a messed up Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
That's exactly what it is. Outriders is the game that they did recently. They did some work on a Gears of War game too, but the ones that impacted me the most, that kind of put them on the map for first-person and third-person shooter games, it was Painkiller. It was Doom, but it was Doom with a new feel to it. And it had a little bit of an interesting story about going to hell. And it was a fun game. I can't explain it. But yeah, it was at its core. It was derivative of Doom. So what is your first thought on the word derivative? Is it Cyberpunk or is it something else?
I wish Cyberpunk was a little bit more derivative, I think.
Oh, okay.
The Cyberpunk thing, man, it's so... I should have been strategizing this before this phone call. I said this on the last episode that I was on, I believe, but I have every achievement in Cyberpunk and in the expansion, the DLC.
Yep.
And I have that just so when I say that I don't love it very much, there's some credibility behind that. It's a game that when it came out, I'm not even talking about the bugs or anything like that or the performance. When it came out, it felt like a game that was made by 10 different teams that didn't talk to each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was unbelievably incoherent.
That's like Anthem, too. That's what it reminds me. And when you say that, Anthem comes to mind. But
And props to CD Projekt for turning it around and rebuilding a lot of their reputation. I still love them as a company. But when Cyberpunk came out, I remember the skill tree was like a disaster.
mm-hmm.
Like it was like the least fulfilling thing ever. You'd level up and then you'd spec deeper into handguns or whatever, and it would be like, your damage with handguns increases by 0.02% with this skill point. Like, okay, fine. But beyond the lack of imagination in that skill tree, there was stuff like you can fire guns faster underwater. Well, you can't fight underwater. That's not a feature that's in the game. So why in the world was there a skill that improved your ability to fight underwater? Gosh, I could talk forever about it. Another thing was the story. My wife, we saw a commercial for it right before it came out, and I had it pre-ordered and everything. And we were watching this commercial, and she's like, I'm going to be honest, that story doesn't seem that good. And I said, well, they're not going to give everything away at the beginning. I mean, there's a lot of scope there that they seem to have glossed over. It turns out that the commercial was just a single cutscene from the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
There's a story montage at the beginning of the game where it skips over all this fun stuff that you get to do with your partner. It just makes it all into a cinematic. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I wanted to do that stuff. I didn't just want to watch a fast forward montage of it. And I understand getting into the core of the story and all that, but I could go on and on. They basically advertised Grand Theft Auto in Night City with The Witcher's storytelling, and that is not what got delivered.
Now, let me ask you a question about a specific mechanic in the game that does remind me of the concept of Brainstorm, which is being able to hear and see and feel all the things that are going on in the environment through this brain jack or brain dance stuff.
Yeah.
The development of a technology that can record a person's perceptions and feelings and things as they're experiencing an event. What were your thoughts on that whole mechanic? How they implemented specifically that?
I thought it was an interesting mechanic, but they only used it really once, if I remember correctly.
Where you're looking for the kid or something that was, it was really disturbing in like the cattle house.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. I take it back. They did use that more than once, but I remember.
But a lot less than they should have, I think.
I wanted it to be a little bit more complex, I think. So what that. Did you ever play The Witcher 3?
I have not played The Witcher 3.
I love it. It's amazing, but it has its flaws, and one of them is when you walk into a room, you can turn on your Witcher sense, which will highlight all interactable objects. And if an object is story related, it will highlight in red instead of yellow, so that you can beeline toward it and get things going. But I remember thinking, like, as much as I love that game, I'm like, what a waste of time this is. You're literally making me walk into a room and hold down left trigger and look around. What's the point? It's not an enriching interactive experience.
What the alternative is to just have it automatically do that. What is the reason that you're making me press it down?
I'm not problem solving. I'm just literally pushing a button and going towards a color. I felt like Brain Dances reminded me a lot of that.
Okay.
Where I was like, I wanted there to be some like hard decision that I'd have to make or some problem I'd have to solve during a brain dance. But it's funny you say the cattle farm. I forgot about that. That is really messed up. That actually does stick with you in an emotional way.
They tried to do a lot of this storytelling that revolved around cautionary tales. All that stuff is derivative of a lot of your cyberpunk kind of predecessors as far as stories are concerned. It still doesn't provide anything new. It's just you're doing the same cautionary tales within this world. Those things were derivative. They weren't investigating anything brand new. This whole brain dance thing obviously was some sort of a VR.
I love the in-world concept that people just want to experience really messed up stuff.
You really need to watch Brainstorm. You really do. I want to say so many things that were in Brainstorm, but I can't because you haven't seen it yet. It could have gone further, but this was the 1980s. It had some really cool things well before we were even thinking about virtual reality. Really interesting.
Okay.
Also, sad sort of story behind it. Not only the death of Natalie Wood, but the director had to go through so much hassle with production, movie companies, all this stuff, that he gave up movies, just completely gave them up, and decided to go with developing movie making technology instead.
That is crazy.
Just left movies altogether because Brainstorm was such a horrible experience for him. And so what he ended up doing was he did a lot of filming and things for rides, like the Back to the Future ride. He did some work with some of that and some of the effects, but he had a great special effects career beforehand. He did do, speaking of Cyberpunk, he did do some of the effects for Blade Runner, and that was around the time, he had to kind of cut it short because he was working on Brainstorm. It's kind of a sad Hollywood story, taking this thing that could have been even better than it was, and just all the garbage he had to deal with. I mean, it's just a horrible situation.
Did Natalie Wood die during filming?
Yes. They actually had to change some things about the movie because of that. Once you watch the movie, we can discuss the specific things that they had to change. But there were some minor plot points that they had to rework. There were some sequences involving water that they had to remove, obviously.
Right.
And then MGM wanted to get the insurance. That's what they wanted. And Lloyd's of London said, nope, you can still make the movie. And so they funded Douglas Trumbull. He had to rework stuff, but it was just this whole back and forth where they were trying to find a new studio for it. And then MGM said, oh, no, we want it back. And just horrible, horrible stories that you hear through his interactions. But anyway.
How did Walken get away with not being implicated in any of that?
I mean, he might not have been awake. As far as I know, there were 4 people on that boat. Natalie Wood, Christopher Walken, Robert Wagner, and the boat driver. So whatever happened, those 4 people know or weren't aware.
Yeah, if she did just fall off in the,
It seems suspect, but no one knows except those people. And there are people speculating about the whole thing. But I mean, the fact of the matter is Natalie Wood was making her return to the silver screen after raising her kids. And that's how they marketed it. It's like Natalie Wood's last movie. And it's like, that's kind of insensitive, MGM, but whatever. I don't want to paint it at any worse of a light. I want you to watch it and let me know what you think about it, because I really do think if you like that idea of the brain dance stuff and how horrible it can be used, you're going to like this movie.
You've definitely sold me on it. I'll try to watch it this weekend if I can.
Sorry to derail you on that whole Cyberpunk sucks thing.
That's about where the logical argument ends. The rest of it's just me complaining about different mechanics and stuff like that.
We kind of naturally went into video games. One thing I was going to mention when I think of the word, I'll just touch on this because I've talked about it before. Financial derivatives is what I think of, because Dad used to take us to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and we used to watch all the chaos on the floor as they were buying and selling futures for pork bellies and soy and all those, corn and all that stuff. It was interesting to watch. I mean, they had hundreds and hundreds of people on this floor communicating with their hands and yelling, and just looked like the most chaos. It's like, how can business get done? I mean, there's no way, but it was the way that they conducted business until 2015 at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So
I always wondered how you got one of those jobs. Like you need to have a sweaty white shirt in your closet. And
that was pretty funny. A buddy of mine, this guy Jay, who not only introduced me to playing Commodore 64 more, but also introduced me to Rush, the band. This was when I was in junior high and into high school. He was doing coursework, so he could actually be one of the people on the floor in the vests doing the buying and selling.
One of the sweaty guys?
Exactly. You had to work for a company to do this, but then, you would know I remember him showing me the different hand signals and what they meant, and it wasn't what I was interested in at the time, but I was interested in just the whole, how can this be the most effective way to do things?
Well, that's my thinking. Like, I'm gonna be the guy that like steps outside where it's quiet, makes a couple phone calls there. Like, why are you sitting next to the guy who's on the phone screaming at somebody?
And they're not even on the phone either. They're just yelling at other people who are up at the boards. It almost looks like if you see any of those movies where there's a gambling sort of thing and people in Vegas and there's people behind a board saying the odds on this, odds on that, and there's just yelling at each other. That's what it feels like to me, is that.
Have you seen The Running Man?
That's exactly what the mercantile. How do you say it? Is it mercantile or mercantile? I think it's mercantile.
I say mercantile, but I'm not going to say that's correct. I have no idea.
The Chicago Merc.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you know what it was originally called, the Chicago Merc?
What?
It was originally founded in 1898 as the Chicago Butter and Egg Board.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Agriculture Conglomerates Exchange. It's pretty interesting. That was the way that they traded commodities. And the reason it reminds me of those futures, along with stock options, forwards, and swaps, those are all derivatives. That's what they're called in the market. Anything having to do with futures or something to be available in the future is that. So anyway.
Is it because they're being derived from a commodity that's currently available?
It's more like they're contracts, essentially, that are sort of fixed price points on assets or groups of assets. It can also be cryptocurrencies too, to some extent. But yeah, it derives its value from something else, which is the reason why they call it derivative. So like the value of the derivative comes from another asset. If you see that there's a big group of locusts coming towards a field, like you've got some insider, like you went to Jurassic World or whatever, and they're creating these locusts, that could impact the futures. I'm going to sell all my futures because I know that the price is going to tank. And if I buy, it's going to lock me in at this high price point because that's where the market's at. You're not dealing in assets. You're dealing in the possibility to purchase the asset. So it's a different part of the market.
I was going to say potentiality, but yeah, what a confusing thing.
To me, it was an interesting concept, but I was most enamored by just the chaos of the market. And then also it was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off where Cameron Frye was doing the whole Three Stooges thing when he was watching people doing the hand signals on the floor too. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was like, I don't remember that being Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but I do remember that.
Should we end here, or do you want to hear me bitch about Star Wars Outlaws a little bit before we close?
Save that for the next time. I'm gonna try to watch Brainstorm, and we're going to try to get on the books again in the next month or so.
Sounds great. That's perfect. I'll find some other reason to bitch about Star Wars Outlaws.
I'm sure there's plenty.
The game mechanics and things that you're playing in it, they're okay, but it's not like the best. It's like, why would I play something that's just okay when I can find something that really grabs me and pulls me in?
Yeah, it's like all the Dark Souls emulators, right? The people that are like, oh, we're going to use the Dark Souls mechanics but not do them as well.
These days, I think instead of derivative, they call them clones, right? Because it's almost exactly like that's one step above being a derivative is, oh, it's a clone. What does that mean? That just means it's just a copy.
That's a step below being derivative.
No, that's true. But I mean, just as far as being a snap or being a jibe or something like that, people say that because that's more extreme than just being a derivative. If you're a derivative, that's fine. But if you're a clone, you're just a straight up copy.
Hey, I used to make Madden, man. I know all about clones.
Yes. Well, we can talk about, maybe clone is a good word. Or maybe there's a word that's kind of been percolating in my head recently.
Is it percolating?
It is. It's not percolating, but is it remuneration? I don't know. I'll think about it later. So anyway, final thoughts on the word derivative. Positive or negative?
I'm going to say positive. If you can find a seed with which to germinate your idea, I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
You just have to differentiate it somehow down the road.
Well, exactly. And there is innovation there. Cars were derived from the wheel.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It uses the wheel, I guess, not really derived from. You take something as a component and then you build on it.
Yes.
There is potential in derivatives. You may derive something from something else subconsciously. That doesn't inherently make it bad. Being inspired by something is not a bad thing.
No, I think that is exactly the takeaway. Everything is derivative of everything. I mentioned Dark Souls a minute ago. That's derivative of dark and gothic fantasy stories. And Miyazaki stumbled into something amazing there because he was so unqualified to have that job.
Right.
That he didn't know enough to be derivative.
Yeah, and sometimes you just accidentally are derivative. Right?
Right. Yes. Yes.
You're discovering things in your personal, it's not derivative because you have no knowledge that you're reinventing the wheel or whatever. But I don't think there's anything inherently negative about a derivative. Like I said, again, my instinct is people who are being judgmental decided that it was going to be a negative thing to be derivative. So then that's how they started using it. I think derivatives are important as far as the seed of an idea.
Yes, especially at the, what was it, the beef and egg board?
Butter.
The butter and egg board.
Put that up on the big butter and egg board. That's a messy board. Greasy and also the muculence on there and whatnot.
I do love butter and eggs though.
I mean, who doesn't really, except vegans? Thank you so much, Erik, for joining me on this week's episode. As always, a rambling, circuitous route we took, but I love just talking about random stuff with you and catching up. And please watch Brainstorm.
It is my number one priority outside of feeding and bathing myself.
Okay. Do I need to buy you the movie like I did Andrew and you never watched it?
He never watched it?
It wasn't Brainstorm. It was Tenet. I thought he would like Tenet. He and Christopher Nolan have a feud.
Interesting.
Christopher Nolan doesn't know that he has a feud, but Andrew has a feud with Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
so,
I have a few of those too.
Yeah.
I will get Brainstorm and I will watch it. And if
I would really like to hear your honest feelings about it. If you think it's garbage, please tell me it's garbage.
I don't know, man. I love Christopher Walken.
I mean, what's not to like? There's this video. You should go online, YouTube. I always thought that Christopher Walken should have a cooking show.
Okay, I'm on board.
I just thought he should because it just seems like, yes, these are oysters on the half shell. I think you just have to split the half shell into oysters. So it's the half shell. I don't do a good Christopher Walken.
What could he teach us about butter and eggs? It would be amazing.
It would be amazing. My point is there is a video of him being recorded making this chicken and pears thing that he just pretends like he's on a cooking show making chicken and pears.
I will literally YouTube this after we hang up.
Okay, chicken and pears, Christopher Walken. It's weird, but it supports the theory that he would have an excellent cooking show. Thank you, audience, for joining us on this week's episode of the Too Vague, what was the thing that we were saying? Too Vague and Spoilers?
Yes.
My name is Ben.
And my name is Erik.
Have a wonderful night. Bye.
We are getting into that era, aren't we?
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of things you do to loosen people up. This is a story about when I got this job at Intuit. I was going in for an interview, being a part of the beta team for the next product that was coming out, which means that you get to work with customers who have a pre-release version of the product, do the same kind of things that you would do in product support, but do it for a beta and then also report bugs that you find and all this stuff, right? So it was really exciting to me to go for that job. And I was working overnights and there was a presentation that we were supposed to do. And towards the end of my shift, they walked over to my desk and said, "Hey, Ben, we locked the presentation accidentally, one of the guys' desks, so we don't have the presentation." And just not thinking, I was so excited. I said, "Don't worry about it. I got it all memorized." And it was like, "Okay, so then we'll just do it in a half an hour." And then I was like, "Oh my God, what did I just say? What the hell did I just say?" So when I get off the phone, I go into the interview and I'm really nervous at that point because I'm in my head, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I got to break the tension somehow. The first question that they asked me in the interview is, what do you think is a requirement for a successful team? And I said, the first thing you need is a bust of James Brown made entirely of butter. But you can't serve him with toast because you can't get crumbs on the Godfather of Soul.
How did that go over?
And it was silent for about 5 seconds, but then everyone started laughing, and that kind of eased my tension. So
that's lucky. That could have hung there.
Oh God, no, that was the kind of person I was back in the day. It was not a move I would make these days.